Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Slumber Party podcast. I am your co host, Amanda Jusen. I am a sleep expert. I help your babies and children sleep. And we have our other co host, Lisa Ramrine, BFF, mom of 3, Wonder Woman, general, hilarious human. And today, our guest is, did you like that intro, Lisa?
Yes.
That was a good one. Did you like that? Was right off. We're getting into it now. We're getting into the groove. Today we have our guest Margot, and Margot wrote in, and she had such a wonderful little note that I said we have to absolutely get her on the podcast because this is sort of my. This allows me, if I'm being perfectly frank, this allows me to really showcase what I think about sleep and sleep training and whether or not you should do it. And is it a thing or not? Is it dangerous or not? Is it something every family should do or ought to do or plan to do? And I think that the answer is always like, maybe. And so we're going to really break down this question. And we get it so much that I hope this is a really helpful episode for anyone thinking or on the fence, or, maybe what side you are on, but you have a friend kind of like, oh, what should I do? What should I do? And you can kind of send them this episode or listen to yourself and coach them in your own beautiful way. So welcome, Margot. How are you?
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for being brave and writing in. So tell me what's going on. Tell me all your problems. I mean, your sleep problems.
I'll keep them to sleep. So yeah, I have a baby who will be 8 months old this week. She's my second. I also have a 2.5-year-old, and I know that kids could be very different, so I won't belabor it. But my son, he like was putting himself to sleep earlier. He had a passy. He was very happy with that, and like, I think around the time he was 4 months old, I stopped helping him to sleep, mostly because he clearly didn't want it anymore. Like, he was like, go away, leave me alone. And I was like, if that's what you want, that's what I'll do. So I didn't sleep train him, but 5.5 months, he was doing his thing and he was sleeping like the magic 12 hours. So when we had this baby, we were like, we just have to wait till 5.5 months and then everything will be magic. And here we are. And she's about to be 8 months and everything is not magic. And things are just still like, chugging along. So she's still, she nurses to sleep, which I didn't intend to do, but she never took a passy or a bottle. And so despite all of my efforts and many brands, so it was always kind of me. And at around 4 months old, she wasn't gaining weight like super well. She's pretty petite. So I found like she was only really taking in a good feed as she was going to sleep. And it was too hard to like fight her to wake up while she was relaxing and eating. So here we are. She's almost 8 months. She's still nursing to sleep. I really like it. I don't mind it. It's sort of like, a nice way to say goodnight. We were doing a dream feed for a bit, but I found it was more disruptive. So I stopped doing that. And she's not like the classic baby that I nurse to sleep and then she's waking up like every sleep cycle screaming for the boob. She sleeps in a crib. We don't co-sleep. Like it's working-ish. But I found, especially over the last few weeks, nothing is months in baby time. Everything is days, weeks. But she started to like crawl, sit up, pull to stand, babble a lot more. Like, she's all over the place, super alert. And all of a sudden she's up at 2 a.m. for like an hour and a half, even though her naps are good. And then now it's been sort of pushed later and later, so she can make it till almost 4 a.m. from like her 7 a.m. bedtime. But then she's up for like an hour and a half. And then we're like, is she even going back to sleep? Is this even happening? She needs me to nurse her. Then my husband's rocking her. Then I'm nursing her again. And you're like, this isn't working. And then the next day I'm nursing her to sleep and it's magic again. And it takes 5 minutes and everything's great. So my husband and I have been going back and forth on like, is this the problem? I think just because it's something that feels like I could change, but I don't really want to lose it if I don't have to, especially since it's sort of like my security blanket for getting milk into her. Um, I tried tonight to to rock her to sleep instead of nursing her to sleep because I knew we were going to talk, and I was like, I'll give it a try and see what happens. And she was like a little gremlin in the dark, like screaming and clawing at me. So I was like, this is not going well. I'm glad this is all happening. So altogether, I would say like it, yes, she's waking up. She seems to want a full feed, but the feed isn't putting her back to sleep. And so I don't really know what she wants or what the problem is and how to give it to her. So I thought maybe,
Yeah.
you know, people who don't know her might know what she wants.
Get an outside opinion. I also love that you essentially cram for the test. You're
Yeah,
like,
I
hey,
had notes.
I'm going to do a quick rocking. Oh my gosh,
Oh,
I
for
love
that test.
that.
Oh, not
Yeah,
for her.
you're like, I'm going to do a quick rock, see how it goes. No, it didn't work. All right. I wanted to come in hot, being like, tonight we did it.
I wanted
I'm
to
just going
show
to do
you
a
that I
quick.
tried something.
You're like, look what I did. Look what I did. Okay.
And then
All
there's
right.
sorry, the last thing I'll say is that, we
Yeah.
live in a small house, and I think we had a little bit more tolerance for my son fussing because it was just us and I could just know it would be fine. But my son is very reactive to her crying, and we get into if we do leave her to cry, which has happened occasionally if like nothing's working. We get into like what my husband and I like to call the symphony of misery, where they're just like battling across rooms of who can scream the loudest, and that's just it's such a nightmare
Symphony
that
of Misery.
I'll do anything to make it stop. So now, now here we are, and I'm wondering what your thoughts are.
Okay. Okay. Um, this is helpful. There was a question that I had when we were talking about does your son, I know like this, there is a method to this madness. Does your son need any assistance to fall asleep now? Do you have to sit with him or pat him or anything?
It's so interesting. Until the baby was born, he would go to bed with his passy and no issues. Over the last so just about a month before the baby was born, before he was even two, started refusing his naps, and we've been in a slow transition out of napping. So he won't nap at home, but he'll nap at school, obviously, for like 2 hours. Hasn't napped at home in 6 months. And so we had some routines that we started to try to do to get him to nap, which didn't work. But now those have sort of like bled into bedtime. And so now he likes a little back rub here and there, but that's like the most he's ever needed. We took
Okay.
his passy away when he was about 18 months old. Yeah.
Okay. 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 This is helpful. I'm going to circle back to that. There is a method to this. Lisa, this story, before I jump into my suggestions, it kind of reminds me of your situation with your
Yeah.
youngest,
Yeah.
right? Because, and I'm going to link all of this. So, this is how my wild brain works that I have so many things that I want to talk about, but now I have to like figure out where I'm going to start. So, I'm just going to start with, so there, okay. When I'm thinking about the question, like, what's the problem, or is this a problem? I guess we could even say, when a client is calling to do a discovery call with us, we are looking actively for the behavior to sleep. And we actually do get clients who call and they're like, no, there is nothing. We put the child into bed and they fall asleep and this is XYZ. So then it's probably a timing issue or a food issue or whatever. But I would say 9.99 out of 10, there is some behavioral assistance to sleep. Now, and why do I talk? I know that, Margot, you've listened to the podcast already, but I know that some people will be picking up this podcast today for the first time. I'm going to recommend that everyone go back to season 1, episode 2, where I talk about the 4-month regression is shit, regardless of the age of your baby. I do break down what is happening behaviorally. I'm going to do a little version of that here. But Essentially, sleep is behavioral, right? And well, a lot of it is behavioral. You're going to have, like your son, those Buddha babies where you can maybe give them a passy, or some families rock, some families straight up feed to sleep, or bottles, whatever. Those babies sleep for 12 hours and we don't have to worry about those babies, right? Like that's just what happens. And I believe that your little one, Lisa, did that for a long time as well.
Hmm.
Now, for many clients, it can be confusing because that works for a long time. Some it works years. For others, it does have a shelf life on in terms of like how effective that is. Then we have to think about, okay, so then when we have help to sleep, quite often the wakings are due to the fact that the child just wants to do what they did to fall asleep in the first place, right? So, okay, I'm nursing to sleep. This feels great. Perfect. And as your baby gets older, they're going to be like, "Hey, I'm awake." Because everyone wakes several times, like 4 to 6 times a night. We all wake. Some of those wakings are going to be more there's going to be more alertness or awareness in the wakings versus others. So, or and I get clients who say to me all the time, look, our naps are perfect. It's just the night. There can't be a sleep association. But if there is something that the child is waking for that happens consistently every night when they wake, that alone can be enough to put a little stick in the mud of your perfect night, right?
Hmm.
So, okay, we've established that it very well could be a behavioral thing that she is waking for. The other thing that can happen as well, and you've alluded to this, is that everything stops working. So you're like nursing, patting, rocking. But the fact of the matter is, for many of our clients, not for everyone, for many of our clients, we don't deal with the super chill, easy babies. Like they don't really come across our desk,
Hmm.
right? We get the more spirited, aware, like smart, like being like, okay, if something is happening, I want the whole show. I'm going to do a nurse. I'm going to get dad to come in to do some rocking. That's cool. Then I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do that. And then, wow, this is pretty awesome. We see babies after 7 months developing likes, dislikes, preferences, things they like to do. So I keep referring back to Lisa in this case because I remember I was like, look, I've done this before. You just had a baby. I want you to know that I don't care how your baby sleeps. You don't have to talk to me or like confess anything. I don't care. If things ever become a problem, I can help you. And then so I remember there was a time where we went over and I came over and I was going to help you do some nap training. And we tried for 5 minutes and you were like, nope, 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 nope. And then we just stopped and then we're like, okay, let's move on until you were ready and it was time. Right.
Yep. Yeah.
Because really what it comes down to, Margot, is this affecting your life in any way? Because you've said a couple of things to me already. Number one, you said, I'm a little bit nervous about the amount of food that she's taking. So that's going to play into this, especially if she's petite and you've been told to watch her weight. I'll counter that by saying we see a lot of small babies gain weight after sleep training because their feeding becomes more efficient during the day due to awareness. And if they're not like their feedings become more efficient due to the fact that they're not falling asleep right after, right?
Hmm.
So that can be a concern that we can mitigate. However, it might play into your ability to follow through, right? Because if you're like, oh my god, what if she's hungry, and you're like, this is a great way for me to get those extra calories in. Okay, then you said, I like this. It's a great way to say
I
good.
like it when it works.
Well, yeah. And so I'm going to
Hmm.
break it all down. If you like it and you want to continue it, then we have to acknowledge the part of our brain that will tell us that what we're doing is wrong when we really want to do something or we feel like it's the right thing to do. So it has to be, we have to get down to you and your partner deciding, listen, is this worth the fact that our kid is going to cry when we change the behavior for 3 days? do we want to do it? Is it impacting our life to the point where we're not enjoying bedtime? We're exhausted. We're not showing up as parents. We're not being our best selves. And then I'm snapping at the oldest. I'm not, do you know what I mean? Like, if you're not there yet, I doubt I could give you like a free service and like work with you forever, and you won't do it, or you'll sabotage it because you don't really want to do it.
Well,
And then
I'm
yeah.
remembering the reason I was so reluctant to baby to sleep train her, especially for naps, was because I'm like, that's what gets me out of the house. That's what gets me out walking, right? So it's like
Mhm.
it was a convenient inconvenience. Like it
Mhm.
kind of fit into my lifestyle, even though maybe I wish some days she'd be a better sleeper. So yeah, that makes sense to me. Well, I think what I want, like in my heart of hearts, is for her to reach the point on her own where she
Mhm.
no longer wants to nurse to sleep. I think
Mhm.
because I had this experience with my son where he at some point very clearly no longer wanted our intervention, my
Mhm.
feeling is, as a mother, I will support her as
Yeah.
best I can until she's
Yep.
ready to be done. But now
Yep.
I'm staring down the barrel of like, what if that happens when she's 3? What if I'm up all night with, so there's a lot of what ifs, but like
Yeah.
now I
Yeah.
think it's more or less manageable, but the early morning wakings are brutal, and I'm not sure that they're connected to in the last week, like I would say she was up between 5:30 and 6 for the day, maybe 5 of
Mhm.
7 days, which is
Mhm.
very hard.
Mhm.
So is that because of the nursing to sleep? Is that because she's having some sign of regression? I think I'm just hesitant to let go of the nursing to sleep. And then what if we're still in this situation and then I lost my meal ticket to put her
Yeah.
to bed, which I
Right.
do, for 2 naps a day and bedtime, like because I'm on mat leave, like it would take away
Yeah.
from what I'm currently using that mostly works. Sometimes she
Right.
seems asleep and I pull her off and she screams and I'm like, this isn't working. But then the next time it works and I'm like, maybe this is working.
Well, yeah, I think that I do sound like I'm trying to convince you to sleep train, but what I would say to that is when let's say you do take away like this really effective strategy that is working, we would be replacing that with a strategy that would literally have you say, okay, like the crying doesn't last. That's the other thing. This is like ideally when you're doing it right, it shouldn't go on for a huge amount of time. Then you just get to a point where you say, okay, I love you. Good night. And then you put the baby down and she does the work. And I just actually had a client that I'm working with this week. And part of their concerns were these like crazy early morning wakings. So they were like, we have to rock her to sleep. And then she's up at 5:30 screaming no matter what. So we've never seen, still working with them. We haven't seen an early morning in about 9 days now. And so the parent was like, why is it so easy? And it's literally because she has these skills to make herself feel drowsy and good now all the time. So that goes into like early mornings, naps, etc. Would you say that this kind of these early mornings or this like fussing is like how long has it been going on for?
It's been going on for 2 to 3 weeks, about since I
Okay.
emailed you, and I think
Okay.
it has coincided with her being able to crawl and go from sitting
Mhm.
to um, crawling to sitting and sitting to crawling, and also getting her 2 bottom teeth.
So
Oh my
yeah,
goodness,
that's a
so
lot of
much happening.
change.
Yeah,
Yeah, like all at once, right?
yeah.
And so then I think that that could be a sign of development, but I would say develop so yeah, this brings up another point where people ask me, should I wait until the regression is over or this period of development or this leap, and then they'll be in a better spot and then I can sleep train. But unfortunately, if you're helping to sleep, you may not ever know when that period of development ends, because it just means that they're smarter in that period of development, so they might actually wake up more, and then we might be accidentally introducing more things, right?
Hmm.
So it could be a period of development, but I would say if it goes on longer than like maybe 2 more weeks or a week, it's probably not related to development anymore. And that's another question we get a lot.
Yeah, it used to be that I would nurse her at night and she would fall back asleep while I was nursing her. And I'd be like, this makes sense. I nursed you to sleep. You needed a feed. I nursed you again. You're back
Yeah.
asleep. It's all magic.
Yeah.
I don't mind waking
Yep.
up once, possibly even twice a night to nurse a baby when I'm nursing.
Yeah.
You know, that's so,
Totally.
but that's why I don't understand why she's not going back to sleep after I nurse her. I'm like, I gave you and she's clearly hungry, you know, like I gave you
Yeah.
the food. So now what do we do? And then we're just kind of looking at each other like, well, now what is happening?
In my experience, and again, we're still in a short phase where this has only been 2 weeks. Here, my piece of advice
It's been
here.
3. I'm it's been at least 3. It's been it's bad.
We're both trying to like, I don't want you to feel pressured, so I'm backing off. But and then you're like, like we're doing a funny dance right now.
Well,
But
I
what I will
actually got into your podcast because I called my friend who's sleep trained and I was like, this isn't working. And she was like, you should apply to Amanda's podcast. Hi, Rachel. Anyway, but
Yay.
so you know when you call the friends that you want the
Yeah.
advice that you know you're going to get from. So this I originally got connected with you because I called my friend who did sleep train both her kids and I was like, help me. And that was
Did
3
she
weeks
use
ago.
us or does she just like listen to the podcast?
I think she did her own plan and listened to the
Amazing.
podcast and it all sort of worked.
Yay. Did you hear that, everybody? This is a podcast that is very valuable. Share with everyone you know. Thank you to your friend.
Thank you,
So,
Rachel.
what I will say to that then is okay, if we do get to a point where people say, why doesn't the help to sleep work? And that's usually because, in my opinion, the most effective way to sleep is when it's internalized. It's a set of skills that are all on your own. And I see it all the time where clients go from, okay, I'm nursing. Okay, I don't want to nurse. I'm going to bottle feed. Oh, that's not working. What about a pacifier? Okay, that's not working. Bouncing. Okay, that's not working. Co-sleeping. And then it's like, okay, literally nothing works. So I don't know what to do anymore. And then all of a sudden the baby learns how to do it. And they're like, oh, okay, thanks. Again, we have to peel this back to the point of, do you want to do it? Is it going to be worth it for you? And Lisa, you're such a good, like, even when it came to like not even nap training, you didn't do it forever and then you did it. What was your turning point for you?
And I was done with exercising. No, well, I think like just it was one of those things, right? Like it was working until it wasn't, and it was when it really stopped working, it became so glaringly obvious. And I have older children, like just like my sons are like 6 and 8 years older than my daughter, so just in the summer was coming up, and I just could see how our entire schedule revolved around the baby napping, right? And so her not napping would inevitably disrupt our evenings, and then I would get less time with the boys. And so sleep needed to become an extremely tight and predictable routine that we knew that she could sleep on the go, she could sleep at home, or we could, leave her to sleep at home and my husband could watch her, and I
Right.
would spend time with the older boys. So it became a necessity. And that was
Mm-hmm.
the thing, right? So when it was working for me for her to sleep in the stroller or for me to be out and doing those contact naps, that was working great, and the boys were at school. It always, like I say, in any discovery call that I do for you, with lots of our wonderful clients, I always say it's just whatever works for your family is what you really should be striving for.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was. Yeah. It
I guess
stopped
what I'm
working.
yeah. Yeah, I think I were in that phase where you're like, I don't know if this is really working. I guess what I'm wondering is because I experienced it with my son where it was very led by him instead of by me. Like, does each kid have like their own internal timer of when they become developmentally ready to put themselves to bed? And I think the thing I'm going back and forth on is, do I need to respect that she will tell me when she's ready to go to sleep by herself, and are we there yet? And is that a thing that different kids reach at different times? And my son just happened to reach it earlier.
I think that I do think that that does exist. I guess it's your patience with it. I think that it's hard for me to answer that question because those clients don't call me. But of course, that exists. That exists, and I think that you hear about it all the time. Like you'll hear, I co-slept, and then one day they just walked out of my bed. They didn't want to do that anymore, and I do think that exists. But then I also deal with like 5-year-olds who have literally never slept without their parents.
Mhm.
And I deal with that all the time. So
Mm.
I think it's hard for me to answer that. I think it just depends on the child in front of you. And we have to say that, yes, we want to honor the child and we do want to give them an opportunity to kind of tell us when they're ready to do things, especially if you have the capacity and the time and the support. And it sounds like your partner is like all involved in this, which is great. But I think that
He's very
if
tired.
I,
He's
well,
very
that was going to
tired.
be, I,
Yeah.
I'm going to come back to
There
that.
comes a time.
Well, and then I think if you have that capacity and you want to do that, you could wait and see. And she could be like, okay, now is the time. But it would also be really normal for kids not to do that. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. And they might just prefer or truly not know how to do this. So they're kind of asking for help. And you might be we might have to force that transition on them, but I don't think there's anything wrong with that either. I think if you have the capacity to wait, I think it's very possible that your child does that. It's also very possible that they don't in the timeline that works for you.
Hmm.
Yeah. No, I'm not. I mean, the other thing too, I had a client once tell me that she co-slept with her parents until she was quite a bit older, like in grade school. And one day they sort of said, enough is enough. And they like put her in a room and she was like, it was the most traumatic experience of my life. And she's like, I just want to do this now so she doesn't remember. And that was like something that I was like, ooh, okay. I mean, that being said, I don't think every methodology, let's be clear, involves just sticking your kid in their room, being like, good luck, I'll see you in the morning. If you were to work with me, that's not what we do. It's a lot more supportive and gradual and slow. So
Mhm.
even if you wanted to change it at 5, there are opportunities that are pretty supportive and loving.
Do you have people who try and then they're like, okay, the baby's not ready, and then they put it all on pause and they try again like in a few months or something?
All the time. Yeah. All the
That was
time.
me. Yeah.
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 It's my best
Baby's not ready.
friend.
Mommy's not ready.
Well, exactly.
Yeah. I just, sorry.
All the
Yeah.
time.
Go ahead, Amanda. Yeah.
No, sorry, I interrupted you. But yes, it happens all the time. Yeah.
Hmm.
How does your partner feel about it?
He he's great in that he just wants to do what is best for us. I mean, I think he feels really bad that she never took a bottle, so he never got to help. And so I think now if I'm like it's 5:30 and someone needs to be awake because she's clearly not going back to bed now, he'll go do it and he'll help you. And then when I was like, maybe we should sleep train, he was like, great, let's close the door and see her in the morning. And I was like, hey, we're not doing that either. So like, he's very like on board, like he'll
Yeah,
Oh,
go
that's
do.
great. That's awesome.
But I
that's
think he's
good.
like me. He wants to help her, and we just don't really know how or if what we're
Mhm.
dealing with is normal, and it requires like the normal parental patience that you need to expend in many areas of being a parent. Or is this
Mhm.
something that is worth having a bit of a strategy for? Because we are doing that thing that I know you're not supposed to do, which is at 3 a.m, being like, what's our plan now? Because now it's 3. And so I'm going to nurse her for 6 minutes.
Ah,
And then are you going to go in at 5 minutes after I leave, or will it be 10 minutes after? And then I'm like, this is bad. Like that, just that we're doing
yeah.
that is
Yeah.
bad. So it would be
Yeah.
better if
What
we
are
had a plan
minutes?
that
Yeah.
wasn't remaking the plan at 3 a.m, for every night in a row for 3 weeks. I'm like, this is a problem. No, this isn't a problem. No, this is normal. No, this is definitely a problem. So we're doing that a lot, and It's very
You've
tiring.
literally done a commercial for when people say, "Why should I pay you to do this?" Like, there we go. We've done
I
it.
know.
There it is. Well,
Well,
look, my
I didn't know
answer,
if there was any sleep training plan that would allow me to continue to sporadically nurse to sleep. And since my assessment was that no, there isn't, then I figured I just need to keep waiting.
so I always say, like, if you're paying me money to help sleep train your child, I won't do it half-assed, and I'm not going to feed you a bunch of bullshit. Okay. I'm not going to tell you that like rainbows and butterflies and unicorns are also going to come to your house, because that's a lie. I will tell you that after 6 months, if we're nursing at night, it almost always leads to confusion and more crying, and we don't really ever consolidate the night. If there was an opportunity for parents to go in and nurse sporadically here and there, or when they wanted to, or like randomly co-sleep, of course I would do that, because I am not a monster. But I wouldn't be able to guarantee your level of success or consistency, which means every time you assist your child back to sleep or offer those sleep crutches again, we are potentially back at square one. Then we have to do more sleep training. When you don't want to do that again, baby's going to cry. And if we just took the word sleep training out and we said, like, I gave your child their favorite thing in the world to sleep, and then I took it away for a long time, and then I gave it back one night, but then I took it away. Like, of course there would be tears. Of course there's crying, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would say I would be very wary of those promising those sorts of results with those feeds, because I just work with those clients after. So my advice is actually, if you want to feed, then that's what you should do. Don't pay someone to do it half-assed. Just pay someone when you're ready, or do it when you're ready. Not even pay someone, do it when you're totally ready to remove those night feeds.
Hmm. So like if she wakes up at 4 a.m., like either don't respond or send him in to try to comfort her some other way.
Well, there would have to be, I can't answer that exactly in the podcast, because I don't want
Yes,
all
of
of
course.
these parents to go and like stop feeding their like 3-month-olds at night, which is not what I'm
They're 2 week
recommending.
olds.
Yeah, exactly. I think you need to have an assessment with your doctor, especially because you've mentioned some weight issues. We have to think about calories. That is what I do. If you don't want to work with a consultant, then that's what your doctor can do with you. They can assess calories, weight gain, curve, all of that stuff, health of the baby. Once we've established that it's okay and safe to remove feeds, then you have a couple of options on how you do that. You can sit with her during the process. You can leave the room with checks. Either way, we recommend methodologies that have some form of intervention and connection with the child during the process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know. So my answer is, do what you want.
What I want is for her to sleep all by herself.
I know.
I guess that's what
Yeah.
everybody would want, right?
I would, yeah. And you know what? It might just happen, right? She's in a period of development. You can give it a little bit of wait time and you can see.
Is the 8-month sleep regression real?
It is. Yeah. It's the leaps. They're all
They're all real.
sorry, what did you say?
They're all real, all of the things. Yeah. And if
Because
they're
my
not,
son
they're
slept
so
through the
helpful
night.
to rely on.
My son slept through the night for the first time at 5.5 months, and he never woke up at night ever again. Never.
That's
Not once.
amazing. I mean, let's knock on some wood here, because we're putting some big things out in the universe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess not every child is like that, apparently. Now I'm learning.
Nope. You got the
That's
unicorn.
really, yeah. And a lot of clients with their second kids are kind of in denial. They're like, no, it's just going to get better, like the first. So don't feel like it's anything, or their third or their fourth child for that matter.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll see
I
how long this goes on for, and then I'll maybe give you a call.
Exactly. We're here. Well, we are at 33 minutes, which is not a bad nap. We're not at a bad time. So we are going to shut her down. Margot, thank you so much for being here and sharing that with us. I hope that was helpful, a helpful assessment, some things that you can ask your practitioner or your doctor, or when you are interviewing a consultant. These are the things that you can ask. Lisa, thank you for being a co-host. And as
Thank
always,
you.
folks, you can find out lots of tips and tricks on our Instagram at Baby's Best Sleep. You can find Lisa at BBS_Lisa on Instagram. Follow us on our blog, our YouTube, and am I missing something? You can book a discovery
The
call with Lisa if you'd
website.
like to work with me. That's fun. She does my discovery calls because I'm manic in the background making, I don't know, shit sparkle. All right. Have a
Well,
good one,
thank you so
everyone.
much. Bye.
Bye.